Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. This is my March favourites and April TBR. So first let's talk about my March favourites, because I won't be doing a wrap up this month because I started this like a week ago and like no one cares. But I do still want to talk about these books, so yeah, I thought I'd just throw them in here, and then from next month hopefully I'll be doing regular wrap up. So the first book I want to talk about is The Midnight Lie by Marie Rutkowski, which is a sapphic romance fantasy story about a girl called Nirim who lives in a world divided by class. No one questions anything, and then one day she meets a mysterious stranger who makes her start to question the way things are and question things about herself, and it's written in a really interesting style. I really liked it. I thought it was written really well, but I think this won't be for everybody. But it's set in the world of the Winner's Curse, which I love, and I'm really excited to read the sequel. This was a solid 4-star read, but I really wanted to talk about it because I think the sequel could be a 5 depending on where it goes. The next book I want to talk about is like technically 2 books, but it is Tinabytes by Cassandra Clare. This is book 2 in the Last Hour series, and I reread Chain of Gold and read Tinabytes when it came out, and this was 5 stars. I loved it so much. This is set in London in the turn of the century. It follows shadow hunters who we've met in some of Cassandra Clare's previous stories, so if you aren't familiar with them, I don't want to spoil anything by talking about this one, but yeah, it follows a cast of characters, and I love them all so much. We have James, Cordelia, Anna, Lucy, Matthew, Christopher, Thomas, Alistair. I love everybody. This book broke me, and I don't know how I'm going to wait until next March for the last book in this trilogy. And also, isn't this very late edition just like gorgeous? I love it so much. But yeah, if you want to talk to me about this book, please do. I will never be over screaming about it. It's just so good. But yeah, one of my faves that I probably am going to read this year. I loved it. So good. And March was a very good month for me. This is more of an honourable mention because we're currently the 31st of March and I have yet to finish this book, but I only have 150 pages left, and that is The Once and Future Witches by Alexi Harrow. I will definitely finish this today, and I'm putting it on my list now because it's so good so far. It is set in the 1890s in like an alt history America where witchcraft exists, but it's sort of gone dormant, and it's about 3 sisters who are trying to bring witchcraft and witching and magic back through the backdrop of a suffragette movement, and it's written so well. Like it's so well told, and the pacing is exquisite. Like, I'm nearly done and so much has happened, but it doesn't feel rushed or forced. I feel like any other YA book I would have picked up would have finished it at the 50% mark and just dragged that beginning plot out, but not this book. It's just, I'm so excited to finish it, and it's so good. I love the characters. They're so flawed and interesting, and they play off each other so well, and yeah, having a great time. Cannot wait to finish it, but also don't want it to end. So yeah, those are my my favourites of March. I will leave my Goodreads link below if you're interested in anything else I've read this month, and I will be trying to go back and fill in reviews for books I've read in previous years, but might take a while, so bear with me. If there's anything you see that I've read that you're interested in my thoughts on, just send me a message. I'll be happy to let you know. And with that, let's get into my April TBR. So first I'm just going to talk through some read-alongs that I'm doing. So these are books that I'm definitely going to be getting to. So first let's talk about Truthwitch by Susan Dennard and possibly Windwitch by Susan Dennard. This is for the Witchlands Along, hosted by Jade from JD Ray Reads. I will link her down below. It's about two girls, Sophia and Isolde. They're both magic. They both have access to magic. Sophia is a Truthwitch and Isolde is a Threadwitch. So Sophia can tell when people are lying, which makes her coveted in political circles, and Isolde can see the threads that bind people together, and they have a knack for finding trouble. They inevitably find some and have to run away, and it's sort of their journey. And the Truthwitch would be a reread for me. I gave it 4 stars the first time I read it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to reading it again. This was the March book for Witchlands Along, but the live show is only being held on the 10th of April. Which is why I've put it off until now. I didn't want to forget anything. So I might read Windwitch this month if the live show is being held very early next May. But if it's being held at a similar time, I'll probably just read this in the beginning of May. But it's a tentative if I get to it, or if the live show is announced. I'll read this one. Next we have another book that was the March pick for the Literally Dead book club. So we have House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Yeah. We have this, which, yeah, like I said, the Literally Dead book club hosted by Kayla over at Books and Lala. I don't know when the live show for this is, and honestly I've been pretty intimidated by it. Like it's supposed to be really fucked up and it's mixed media formatting. I've got no idea what it's about, but it's like a cult classic freaky book and I do want to read it, and I will hopefully get to it before the live show is announced, but as of yet I don't know when that is, so that's why I've been putting it off, and we'll be reading it in April. And finally for read-alongs we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, which is for the Strange Along hosted by Maddie over at Book Browsing Blog, and Strange the Dreamer is one of my favourite books of all time. My Laini Taylor shelf is right here. Like I love it. It's so beautifully written. It's about a librarian called Laszlo Strange who has forever been obsessed with a lost city called Weep, and one day a delegation from Weep arrives in his city and whisks him off on an adventure, and it's so good. It's full of beautiful writing and the characters just get me, and I'm very excited to reread it and tab it up and put some annotations in it. And I bought an edition specifically because it was nice and floppy and would be easy to annotate, and I'm so excited to get to it, you don't even know. Next we have books that are part of sort of my goals of the year. I'm still planning to film that video, by the way, it just hasn't worked out yet. But yeah, my goals for the year are to try and read a classic, more classics, to become more widely read. So this month I'm going for Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. If you don't know what this is about, I'm probably not the person to tell you, but I know it's sort of like a tragic romance with full of toxic people, and it's one of my friend's favourite books. But I tried to read it once and the way the Yorkshire was written was just like incomprehensible to my brain. So I'm gonna probably try and read along with the audiobook for this one and hope for the best. But yeah, I'm excited to see if I like this because I do love an angsty doomed romance. I also want to try reading more non-fiction, so The Genius of Jane Austen by Paula Byrne is my non-fiction read for the month. I didn't get to one in March, I got distracted and scared of Sapiens because it's so chunky, but I will go back to that one eventually. But yeah, I love Jane Austen. I figure this will be an interesting read, just not listening, but reading someone just rave about Jane Austen, like sign me up. And also this cover, like stunning, isn't it? And my next set of books are BookBox books. So if you watch my Bookopoly vlog, you know I try to read some, but I'm trying to read some every month, and these are the two I didn't get to in Bookopoly that I sort of really want to. So we have Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, which I believe is like an enemies to lovers, someone makes a deal with a demon, set in Italy in the past maybe, lots of food mentioned. It's gorgeous. I'm excited. I've read Carrie Maniscalco and enjoyed her before, so I'm going to see how this one goes. And then the last BookBox book is These Violet Delights by Chloe Gong, which is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1928 Shanghai. That's all I know about it, but like I'm a hoe for a star-crossed lovers trope, and I'm really excited. Again, it's beautiful. I don't really need to know much else, to be honest. And finally we have Miscellaneous. So these are books that just, if the mood strikes, I will pick them up, but I like to have a sort of section of books to pick from so that when I want to mood read I'm not overwhelmed by all of the shelves. So the first one is Circe by Madeline Miller, which is stunning, and a retelling of Circe from Greek myth. I loved Madeline Miller's other book, The Song of Achilles. It's one of my favourite books of all time. I loved her short story Galatea. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm so excited to dive into this. I can't believe it's taken me so long, but now I own this gorgeous hardcover. Like, I'm sure it will happen soon. One of my other options, maybe a bit of a lighter read, is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson, the sequel to Skyward, which is about a girl called Spencer whose father is a coward when a coward is the worst thing in the world to be. And she goes to flight school to try and prove herself and goes on an emotional journey, and there are like aliens involved, and this is a sequel to that, which I'm excited to continue on with. We'll see how this one goes. And finally, this is the scariest book on my list because it is this big. That is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I have owned this book for so long. I went to the launch. It's like high fantasy, female retelling of Arthurian legend with like no misogyny, because why do you need sexism in a fantasy world? Like, go off, Samantha. And I haven't read it because it's so big, but this month I have the audiobook to read along with. I'm determined to just slowly work away at it and finish this book. So yes, this is a big goal, but I'm excited about it. So yeah, that's my TBR for April. It's daunting, but we have readathon. That might help me, though I'm also going to try and read like some of these books for that. I'm going to try and read a whole trilogy in readathon. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, please leave a comment, like and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you in the next video.